إعلان مهم.
重要提示
Important announcement.
Message important.
Важное объявление.
Anuncio importante.
يرجى من المتحدثين الكرام إلقاء بياناتهم بسرعة معقولة لضمان ترجمة فورية وافية وعالية الجودة.
为了帮助口译准确完整传递发言信息，请代表发言时语速不要过快。
Speakers are kindly reminded to deliver their statements at a reasonable pace to ensure complete and quality interpretation.
Il est rappelé aux orateurs qu'ils doivent présenter leur déclaration à un rythme raisonnable afin de garantir une interprétation complète et de qualité.
Напоминаем ораторам, что для обеспечения полного и качественного устного перевода необходимо выступать в умеренном темпе.
Se ruega a los oradores que pronuncien sus declaraciones a un ritmo razonable para garantizar una interpretación íntegra y de calidad.
I think everybody is settling down. Excellencies, distinguished participants, the organizational meeting of the 62nd session of the Human Rights Council is now open. The meeting is organized in line with Rule 8.b of the Council's Rules of Procedure, primarily to review the draft program of work and share information on draft resolutions and other initiatives planned during the session. I have the pleasure now of welcoming Ms. Awa Dabo, the Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, for her first address before the Human Rights Council since her appointment. Ms. Dabo, on behalf of the Council, I wish to congratulate you on your appointment, and we look forward to working with you. Pursuant to President's Statement PRST OS/19/1, Ms. Dabo will provide an updated and comprehensive assessment of the flexibility of implementing the activities that have been identified as non-deliverable in 2025 and/or 2026, and the criteria underpinning such assessments, as well as any other activities mandated by the Council during the period 2025-2027 that might be affected by the liquidity and financial crises. Delegations will be given an opportunity to ask questions or make comments after the update. Following that, the United Nations Department of Safety and Security will deliver a briefing on security and access control arrangements during the 62nd session, including in the context of the G7 summit. We will then take a short technical break before proceeding to other outstanding business, including consideration of the extraordinary modalities of the 62nd session, the overview of the draft program of work and sharing information on draft resolutions, and other initiatives planned during the upcoming regular session. Excellencies, distinguished participants, I now have the honor to give the floor to Ms. Dabo for her update on the activities that have been identified by the OHCHR as non-deliverable, as well as any other activities mandated by the Council that might be affected by the ongoing liquidity and financial crisis. Madam, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good afternoon. And thank you, Mr. President, for your kind words of welcome. It is an honor to address the Human Rights Council for the first time in my capacity as Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights. Under the leadership of the High Commissioner, I look forward to working closely with this Council in a spirit of dialogue, cooperation, and mutual trust. I am committed to engaging openly and constructively with all stakeholders and to supporting the Council in fulfilling its vital role in promoting and protecting human rights worldwide, particularly at a time when the global human rights landscape is marked by complex and evolving challenges. As the President has just recalled, I am here today representing our office, pursuant to President's Statement OS 19/1, to provide an updated assessment of the feasibility of implementing the activities that have been identified as non-deliverable in 2025 and 2026, as well as any other activities mandated by the Council during the period 2025 to 2027 that might be affected by the ongoing liquidity and financial crisis. As noted by my predecessor during the last update, I would like to recall that the approved regular budget for OHCHR for 2026 represents a reduction of over $25 million compared to the 2025 approved budget. Of the approved amount to date, OHCHR has received 60% as advance allocation, amounting to $132.7 million. The Office of the Controller has indicated that the final level of allotment will only be clear upon confirmation of the timing of the payments from those member states with the largest assessed contributions. Consequently, risks to mandate delivery, operational capacity, and staffing stability persist. Therefore, the Office has no other choice but to continue exercising prudence, discipline, and strict financial restraint. All the Council's mandated activities remain affected by reduced resources, including staff cuts, and will therefore continue to be delivered in a significantly scaled back manner throughout 2026. For instance, as previously communicated by my predecessor, the work of the intergovernmental working groups, the expert mechanisms, the special procedures established by the Council continues to be significantly hindered, with notable reductions in sessions, in meeting times, and country visits. Special procedures country visits, for example, have once again been reduced by half this year and have been further complicated by the lack of funding for conference services to provide interpretation. Mr. President, the uncertainty regarding the final regular budget allotment for OHCHR, the hiring freeze, and the reductions recommended by the ACABQ, affecting all general temporary assistant resources allocated to the Office for the implementation of the Council mandate, including our positions in the field and national officer positions, seriously hinder our capacity to deliver. Rest assured, however, that the Office remains committed to delivering the mandates entrusted by it to this Council. Notwithstanding the challenging operating environment, this is and remains a priority, and we continue to explore ways of adapting the outputs. This commitment is reflected, for example, in the Office's ability to ensure the forthcoming presentation at the 63rd session of 2 reports that were previously considered as non-deliverable and outlined in Annex 1 to the High Commissioner's letter of 16th June. They are namely the report on the impact of the use of strategic lawsuits against public participation on the enjoyment and realization of human rights, in particular the right to freedom of opinion and expression, pursuant to Council Resolution 56/7 of July 2024, and the report on best practices of states, local government, and other relevant stakeholders in overcoming the various challenges that local governments face in promoting and protecting human rights, pursuant to Council Resolution 5712 of October 2024. In both cases, events were held online at reduced costs in 2025. Regarding the first report on freedom of opinion and expressions, a half-day workshop was held online instead of in-person meetings as requested by the resolution in May 2025. Concerning the second report on local government and human rights, an online event was organized with support from sponsors of the resolution, which partially filled the gap left by the cancellation of the full-day intersessional event mandated in the resolution. The inputs received through these events made production of the reports now being delivered possible. Turning now to the progress made in implementing Resolution S-37-1 of February 2025, establishing the Commission of Inquiry on the human rights situation in the South and North Kivu provinces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and which is also highlighted in the High Commissioner's letter of 16th June 2025. I wish to inform you that the Commission is functioning at markedly reduced capacity, requiring strict prioritization of activities and travel. And some of the key developments have included the recruitment for the Secretariat in Kinshasa, which has been initiated, and deployment of some core team members began in mid-May of this year. A dedicated interim search support has also been provided to the commissioners by the office to advance core preparatory work, while it secured the onboarding and deployment of a core part of the Secretariat in Kinshasa. Mr. President, in the unlikely scenario that OHCHR receives 75% allotment of its funds, all mandates without exception must be implemented in a reduced form. For example, a comprehensive report may now need to be scaled down to a standard report with more limited scope and depth than originally envisaged. Where activities are foreseen, efforts are being made to minimize costs using online or hybrid modalities, as well as other cost-efficient approaches. In addition, several mandates cannot be implemented in full or on time. Let me explain. When it comes to mandates due at the beginning of the 62nd session, 2 reports have been delayed under the Council's next session as we could not recruit the staff that we needed. They are the report of the Secretary General on prevention of genocide, with a particular focus on early warning and prevention mandated in Council Resolution 5513 to be submitted to both the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly, and the analytical study of OHCHR on protection gaps of vulnerable segments of the population regarding access to medicines, vaccines, and other health products in the context of the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health mandated in Council Resolution 597. It remains our objective, however, for both reports to be submitted at the 63rd session of the Council. It should also be noted that several reports of both the 62nd and the 63rd sessions are likely to be available only in advance unedited versions by the time of their consideration, due to the inevitable delays in their preparation, also given to staff reductions. Mr. President, allow me to turn to other Council mandates that have also been affected by the reduced availability of resources. Concerning the investigative mechanism for Afghanistan, established by this Council last year in its Resolution 60/2, OHCHR has continued to carry out preparatory work to support its operationalization. In this context, OHCHR led the drafting of the mechanism's terms of reference, which were transmitted by the Secretary General to the Council in Conference Room Paper AHRC 61 CRP.6. Recruitment is ongoing and startup staff are expected to be deployed in the coming weeks. The head of entity will be appointed separately by the Secretary General. As you know, a dedicated trust fund was established in early 2026 to support the mechanism's outreach activities, protection measures, and sustained engagement with Afghan civil society through voluntary contributions by member states. However, despite strong encouragement to contribute and a very modest initial contribution that was received funding mobilized to date is not yet sufficient, and to begin meeting the mechanism's operational needs. The implementation of Council Resolution 6028 on assistance to Somalia in the field of human rights has likewise been affected. Of the 5 positions included in the PBI, only 1 could be filled, as the government of Somalia signed a host country agreement with OHCHR on 6th May 2026 to open a country office. The full staffing complement is urgently required to meet the expectations of the authorities and the population. In implementation of Council Resolution 60/32 on technical assistance and capacity building to improve human rights in Libya, an initial allocation enabled a limited number of priority actions to be carried out by the already understaffed UNSMIL Rule of Law and Human Rights section. Of the 7 regular budget positions originally foreseen, 2 were abolished under UNHRC, and of the remaining 5, OHCHR is currently seeking to fill at least 3 of them temporarily. This is essential to ensure a minimum operational capacity to effectively implement mandated human rights technical cooperation activities across Libya. The implementation of Council Resolution 6035 on technical assistance and capacity building in the field of human rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been significantly affected by the recruitment freeze. Of the 35 positions budgeted, only 1 remains filled. The contracts of temporary staff against those positions ended, and the hiring freeze prevented additional recruitment. This has particularly impacted the provision of highly specialized expertise, such as its forensic sciences, to support the Congolese authorities. Multiple thematic resolutions that call for enhanced field activities have been significantly impacted with mandated field posts remaining vacant and unable to deliver the additional work. One notable example is Council Resolution 5610 on peaceful protests, significantly affected at the country level, with delays in the implementation of the practical toolkit for law enforcement officials, including the model protocol. Limited staff capacity and financial resources allowed technical assistance to be initiated in only 2 of the 5 planned countries, and even there, activities were confined to the initial stages of the operationalizing of the model protocol. As a result, the project has not yet reached the critical phase in which law enforcement institutions shift from a focus of crowd control during protests to facilitating the exercise of the right to peaceful assembly. The delays have also hindered progress in building trust between police institutions and communities. This is an essential element for achieving broader and sustainable human rights impact, particularly in contexts where protests are frequent. Mr. President, General Assembly Resolution 80/251, adopted on the 31st March, set in motion a series of concrete measures aimed at improving the mandate cycle process, including the creation, the implementation, and the review of mandates. It reinforces the importance of continued efforts by member states to prioritize and rationalize mandates in line with available capacities. This council has in fact made headway on efficiency, on rationalization, and mapping of mandates even before the UNHRC was launched. OHCHR stands ready to support the sharing of good practices and the Council's own implementation of the system-wide exercise. We welcome the efforts made by delegates to streamline or, where appropriate, downsize, to merge, or conclude mandates, and we encourage the continuation of rationalization, effectiveness, and impact of the system, while preserving the integrity of the overall Human Rights Council's work in a fair and transparent manner. In this context, I am pleased to share that the Human Rights Council mapper has been updated with a new user-friendly design and with data from the last 12 months on Council resolutions, mandates, and mechanisms. In line with PRSC 19/1, the mapping tool now includes PBI examples, which will allow delegates to quickly see the estimated resource requirements of different types of Human Rights Council mandates. OHCHR has also begun the process of linking the detailed HRC mandate database with the UNHRC mandate registry. The HRC mandate is already a solid evidence base for review and rationalization decisions by the Council. Further updates are planned to meet Member States' needs, including analytical tools and integrating the Council's voluntary calendar of thematic resolutions. The Secretariat will organize a briefing session on the updated digital tool in due course. I should also recall that, like many other activities, the development of the MAPA has been hindered by the lack of resources. And so far, the Office has absorbed this new Council mandate to the extent possible within its limited resources. OECHR stands ready to provide guidance and technical advice on efficiency and rationalization measures. I encourage delegates to engage with us early when considering such steps so that we can help support a strategic approach and avoid unintentional protection gaps. In line with our continued commitment to transparency, the High Commissioner and OECHR remain at the disposal of this Council and all delegations and stakeholders for ongoing and collaborative engagement, both formal and informal, on all aspects of the implementation of the mandated activities as we jointly navigate the challenges posed by the current liquidity crisis. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, in closing, let me reaffirm the Office's unwavering commitment to supporting this Council in the effective delivery of its mandate. At a time of growing demands and constrained resources, our collective responsibility is not only to safeguard the credibility and impact of the human rights system for the people that we serve, but also to ensure its financial sustainability. In this regard, I must underscore the critical importance of all Member States meeting their assessed contributions in full and on time, which remains essential for the organization to deliver on its mandate. I thank you for your continued engagement and support, and I look forward to strengthening our collaboration in the periods ahead as we work together to uphold the principles of the Charter to advance the promotion and protection of human rights for all. I look forward to a dialogue with delegates and stand ready to address any questions and observations that you might have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy High Commissioner. We take note of the information provided concerning the current status of implementation of mandated activities. I would now like to open the floor to delegations wishing to ask questions or make comments on the update by the Deputy High Commissioner. I recognize the distinguished representative of Spain. You have the floor, sir.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm taking the floor, first of all, to welcome the Deputy High Commissioner and to wish her every success. We would also like to wish all the very best for the moves within our service. We tend to say that 3 moves within a service is the same as managing a fire breakout, and we know that you have to move all your offices, so we wish you very much the best in that respect. I'd like to make a couple of comments in respect of what you said. First of all, we welcome the possibility of convening a meeting to explain the MAPA that you have developed. It would be very useful for all delegations, I think, to have precise technical information about how we can make a better use of that tool, which we have all asked for and which you have been able to develop. I would also like to refer to something that you touched on in passing, which is multilingualism. We know that with the pressure to save costs, the temptation is to reduce multilingualism, but that for us is a founding principle, a constitutional principle of the United Nations. And I just wanted to draw the Secretariat's attention and also the attention of all delegations that according to information we've received, New York is taking decisions which do not seem to be equitative regarding the allocation of resources. Why is it Geneva where there is the largest number of meetings that require interpretation that are held, why does Geneva seem to be receiving a lower level of allocation of funds? We want to draw attention to that aspect, and we would like to draw all delegations' attention to this so as to prevent any decisions that might undermine Geneva as headquarters. Thank you.
Next, before I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico, please be mindful that because of factors of angle and distance, that sometimes from the podium it does not immediately obvious those seeking for the floor. So further efforts might be needed, but the secretariat staff are also roaming around to make sure you are properly identified. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, President, and thank you very much. I'd like to begin by warmly thanking Ms. Aguado on her appointment, and please rest assured that you can count on Mexico's support for all of these issues, and we are certain that you will be very successful. I'd like to join my voice to what was said by the distinguished ambassador of Spain with regard to strengthening the organic link between New York's Third Committee, the Human Rights Council, and the ICBQ. We believe that it is important that we get information in a prompt and detailed fashion in due time. And also, as the member of the group for the promotion of the Spanish language, we'd like to support the ambassador of Spain. Spanish is one of the United Nations official languages, and with the issues linked to financial liquidity and the financial crisis, language services should not be cut. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is the European Public Law Organization that I represent. Probably due to the distance and all that, I was misrepresented. I would like to thank very much the Deputy High Commissioner for her presentation. And if I understand very well, there was a fleeting suggestion that delegations could engage in some kind of exchange of views with the Secretariat regarding the possible PBIs associated to resolutions. I may be wrong, but I did catch this in her statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I stand corrected. So for the record, it is the Organization of European
EPLO, European Public Law Organization, Permanent Observer. Thank you.
Thank you for the correction. It is the European Public Law Organization. Have we exhausted our list? It seems that is the case. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you so much, Chair. Let me start off by warmly congratulating the Deputy High Commissioner on assuming this mandate and to assure that my delegation would work concertedly with others in ensuring that she succeeds in this new portfolio. Chair, we of course, received the updates from the Deputy High Commissioner, and we're all aware that the current predicament that we are facing is certainly due to one reason, and which is the failure or the lack thereof in terms of members meeting up to their assess contributions, not just on time, but to do so regularly. Now, I indicated this at the last meeting with the High Commissioner, that look, yes, we have taken series of rationalization measures and efficiency measures to deal with the current predicament that we're in. But I think it is time for us to think with other measures. I mean, in terms of sustainable, funding mechanism in dealing with the financial crisis that the UN is currently facing. It is important that we consider this. Assess contribution alone, from all indications, is by far should not be the only answer in terms of the funding situation for the UN. We must begin to think about other innovative means of funding generation for the United Nations. It is important we think about this. Thank you, President.
Thank you. In the absence of further requests for the floor, I give the floor to the Deputy High Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished delegates, for the comments and the questions and for the support. And we're very honored and very humbled for your continued support. I think 3 questions were raised, or 3 points were made. The one on the issue of multilingualism, of course, absolutely, we agree with you on that. That is a discussion we've been having and we continue to have with DGCM, on that point. And yes, indeed, the financial crisis has been difficult in many fronts, but absolutely, I take note of the point made by the distinguished delegates, and I think we concur, and we'll continue to move to see how we can work on that. On the issue of the MAPA, I think the Council branch colleagues will reach out to member states to organize that as soon as possible, a meeting on the MAPA. I think that'll be interesting. And also linked to that as well is the question on PBIs. I think we noted in my statement that the Human Rights Council MAPA provides new information on PBIs that is available for use, of course, by member states as well as for other interested parties and other stakeholders. I think that's those are the only points that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Based on the information provided by the Deputy High Commissioner, the 3-year program of work of 2026-2028, dated 28 May, will be updated and will shortly be replaced on the extranet for everyone to consult. Excellencies, distinguished participants, I welcome the representative of the United Nations Department of Safety and Security, who will now deliver the briefing on security and access control arrangements during the 62nd session, including in the context of the G7 summit.
Thank you so very much for giving me the floor. Mr. President, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Department of Safety and Security, it is a pleasure to be here with you and to provide you with information which will hopefully facilitate the upcomings for the access measures for the upcoming HRC. Let me please begin by saying that this is an atypical HRC in the sense that it is taking place in parallel with the G7 summit, which is being organized in Evian. Let me please assure you that we are in close coordination with the host country authorities, which are in the process of putting in place a series of adapted measures, which are adapted, of course, and which aim to facilitate not only the proceedings of various meetings taking place at UNOC, but also overall circulation and fluidity in Geneva and the neighboring areas. However, for the time being, the situation remains under assessment and under close analysis. We still have a series of meetings still scheduled this week, with the host country authorities and also with a variety of agents, funds, and programs operating in Geneva. As soon as a finalized decision will be taken and in close coordination with the Swiss mission and of course with OHCHR colleagues and the presidency, by means of an appropriate communication which will be sent to you shortly, we hope by the end of the week, you will be informed if there are any special measures which are being put in place for this session of the HRC. If not, it's very much business as usual for us and the measures which are standard for the Human Rights Council. And we hope and planning and doing our best that any parallel events taking place in Geneva will not hamper and will not disturb this. So again, this stage, just let me reassure you that we are following up closely on all the evolutions of the situations, which remains quite flexible, and we will get back to you shortly by means of a written communication with the latest information. Thank you so very much. If any questions.
Thank you. I'm looking around to see if there's any request for the floor. Otherwise, we look forward to receiving the written communication by or before the end of this week. Thank you. And thank you for the briefing. Excellencies, distinguished participants, we will now
contribution of pain holders to the collective rationalization efforts with a view to creating a positive and sustainable dynamic. With this in mind, we are consulting at expert level with all pain holders of the resolutions before the 62nd session to encourage them to explore ways of contributing to the streamlining effort. We are also engaging with all regional groups and thank delegations for their positive and constructive engagement so far. We'll continue to consult with all other stakeholders within the framework of our mandate. If any delegations are presenting resolutions at the upcoming session and haven't been contacted by us, we kindly invite you to get in touch with our respective delegations. Dear Chair, distinguished delegates, as underlined in our joint letter to all delegations of 6 May, there have been numerous tools and good practices implemented over recent years, as set out in the non-paper of the previous co-facilitators, which highlight possible avenues for rationalization. The Human Rights Council's triennial program of work for 2026 and 2028, and the Human Rights Council mapper prepared by the Secretariat are essential in providing a multi-year overview of the activities of the Human Rights Council. The General Assembly Resolution A/Res/80/251 entitled Creation, Implementation and Review of the Mandate for an Effective and Efficient United Nations Organization is also a useful tool. Looking forward, we will continue to consult widely. We will also track rationalization gains and good practices so that all delegations can follow our collective efforts. We are aware of other relevant processes underway and will facilitate discussions on how Human Rights Council efficiency and rationalization can align with broader efforts to create a more efficient and effective UN system. We will draw on Resolution A/Res/80/251 as relevant, and will track the work of the Ad Hoc Committee on Mandate Implementation and Review as it applies to our work in the Human Rights Council. We will also look at synergies with the work of the Third Committee as relevant. We look forward to working with all delegations and all relevant stakeholders, including the OHCHR and civil society and special mandate holders in this work. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I now invite delegations to share information on draft resolutions and other initiatives. Delegations wishing to take the floor in the room should raise their nameplates. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sweden, followed by Mexico.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Sweden, together with Finland, will present at this session the resolution on the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial, summary, and arbitrary executions. This is a long-standing and important mandate of the Human Rights Council, focused on the protection of the right to life and on addressing extrajudicial, summary, and arbitrary executions wherever they occur. The draft resolution is a straightforward renewal of the mandate for a further 3 years. It builds on previous Council resolutions and updates the text where appropriate, including references to the recent work and reports of the mandate holder. As a contribution to the ongoing efforts to rationalize the work of this Council and the wider UN human rights system, we will propose moving from an annual reporting to the General Assembly to 2 reports over the 3-year mandate period. Sweden and Finland will engage constructively and transparently with all delegations. We look forward to collaborating with colleagues with a view to securing broad support for the renewal of this important mandate. I thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico.
Thank you very much. Allow me to present various draft resolutions that we will introduce during the 62nd session of the Human Rights Council. First of all, I have the honor of taking the floor on behalf of the core group comprised of Mexico, Morocco, Slovenia, Spain, and Thailand, in order to present a new draft resolution, which is exceptional in nature, on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Human Rights Council. On the 19th of June 2026, the international community will mark the 20th anniversary of the first session of the Human Rights Council, which was established by the General Assembly pursuant to Resolution 60/251 of the 15th of March 2006. In the current geopolitical context, we believe it is important to reaffirm the role of multilateralism and of human rights in addressing global challenges and in conflict prevention. The 20th anniversary of the Human Rights Council is a timely opportunity to do so. It will enable us to reaffirm the mandate that the General Assembly gave to the Council, while also collectively recognizing the major contributions made by the Human Rights Council over the last 20 years. Our goal is to adopt a positive resolution that celebrates the achievements of the Council and which recognizes the contributions made by all stakeholders who've participated in this process. We are convinced that this initiative, which is grounded in a spirit of consensus and multilateral solidarity and on a genuine commitment that is shared, a commitment to human rights, will garner broad support from all regional groups. Mexico would like to cordially invite all member states to participate in a constructive way in the consultations on this draft resolution. President, secondly, I am pleased to inform you that Mexico and New Zealand will present a draft resolution in order to renew the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the rights of persons with disabilities for an additional 3-year period. The renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur is of particular significance in the context of the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which will be marked at the end of this year. The distinguished permanent representative of New Zealand will provide the necessary details regarding the content and objectives of that draft resolution. President, finally, During this session, we will present the biennial resolution on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women and girls. On this occasion, the resolution will focus on the gender dimension of care and support systems and discrimination. This is a topic that was highlighted by the Working Group on the Discrimination Against Women and Girls in its last report, second last report, and by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Given its important role in promoting this important agenda within the Human Rights Council, and as a streamlining measure, Spain and Ireland will be part of the core group that will present this initiative alongside Mexico and Chile, making it possible to form a very broad group. President, care and support are an absolutely essential pillar of our societies and for our economies. Every human being requires some kind of care or support at some point in their lives. However, the disproportionate distribution of care and support work and also of domestic labor is one of the main factors behind gender inequality. At the global level, 45% of women of working age are left out of the labor market due to unpaid care work responsibilities, and they don't have the possibility of accessing the care and support that they themselves need, and nor can they provide themselves with self-care. The resolution seeks to highlight how gender inequalities in care and support systems impact the enjoyment of human rights by girls and women, and to call on states to build, strengthen and transform these systems through specific measures aimed at achieving real and genuine substantive equality. President, if I may, we would now like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Spain so that they can continue the presentation of this particular initiative. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. With your leave, we would just like to say that we're happy to be cooperating with Mexico, Chile and Iceland in order to help enhance the efficiency and streamlined work of this council. And we are joining the core group, given that these initiatives are very much converging, and it is a topic of great significance for all. Work and support from a human rights perspective, there have been significant steps forward at the international and regional levels, including resolutions that have been adopted in the context of the General Assembly and the ILO and the WHO. The agenda is now back before the Human Rights Council through the resolution on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women and girls, which will contribute to gradually building human rights standards in this field. We therefore invite all delegations and civil society organizations to take part in a constructive way in the consultation and informal consultations of this draft resolution. Spain will also co-sponsor a side event on femicide. This is something that has been prepared with the Office of the High Commissioner, and it is a contribution of the international human rights system to combating violence against women and girls. Spain will continue to defend non-discrimination on grounds of gender and sexual orientation, promoting values through the promotion of the input of the experts on this topic, and by promoting more inclusive and equal opportunity initiatives for human dignity. In the context of this session of the Council, we will, through a number of initiatives, tackle human rights violations endured by the Palestinian prisoners in detention centers in Israel. We're talking about thousands of people who have been subjected to torture and awful conditions of detention, and this Council cannot turn a blind eye to it. We will continue to call for the respect of the human dignity of the activists in international waters in the face of illegal detentions, And on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of this Council, we will continue to defend multilateralism and its fundamental role in the international human rights architecture. Many thanks.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Argentina, followed by Qatar and Pakistan.
Thank you very much, President. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Ms. Awa Dabo on her appointment, and we would just like to convey to her our very best wishes in her function and assure her that she can count on the support of our delegation. Argentina would like to inform delegations that it will present in its national capacity a technical renovation of the resolution on businesses and human rights. We are doing this because we understand that this is an important topic. It's important for workers, it's important for communities, it's important for states, but it is also important for businesses themselves, who today are playing an ever increasingly important role in our economies and societies. Our initiative relates to the resolution 53.3 on business and human rights, which was adopted by consensus by this Council in 2023. Since then, President, the world has not become more simple, value chains are more complex, and innovation is gathering speed. The economy is changing at an unprecedented pace, and that is precisely why the responsibility to promote respect for human rights in all fields of economic activity remains a very relevant task. We are not here to reinvent the wheel. We are here to preserve the work that has been done and to build on it, and to reaffirm the importance of an agenda that has shown its relevance and worth for this Council. In the next few days, we have the opportunity to exchange views during the informal consultations. We will listen and we will discuss, and we will work in a very constructive spirit in order to ensure that because in our view, the most robust resolutions are not those that belong to a single delegations, but those that are owned by everybody. Argentina will also co-sponsor alongside other countries a side event on education, which will take place during the first week of this session. The details of the time and place are still to be confirmed. President, with respect to the initiative that we will be putting forward, we understand that businesses generate employment and promote innovation and contribute to development, and that is precisely why it in which we are presenting that initiative today. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Qatar, followed by Pakistan and the Netherlands.
Can I say that
Thank you, President. Qatar reaffirms its commitment to cooperation with the Human Rights Council so that it can conduct its mandate efficiently. The 62nd session will be held at a time the world is facing staggering challenges related to armed conflicts. This affects human rights in many countries. This requires that the Council double its efforts to live up its mandate and shoulder its responsibility as a body that protects human rights globally and is responsible for dealing with challenges. Qatar will table a resolution entitled "The Protection of Healthcare in Armed Conflicts." It touches upon important issues related to protecting health facilities and health professionals and people vulnerable to risks during conflicts. Our initiative consolidates commitment by warring parties and countries in line with IHL, while stressing that the right to health and healthcare are main human rights that should be protected, and we should ensure their enjoyment by people at times. Participation for a broader sponsorship of the resolution. Qatar will be organizing an event entitled enabling women and girls in sport in 16 July from 11 to 12. Empowerment of women in sport on 16 July from 11 to 12 following an exposition and a reception. The permanent mission of Qatar will participate in an event with regards to the consolidation of resilience in peace. Its aim is to shine a light on the family resilience within the context of crisis and conflicts, and the role of families in social stability and the welfare of family.
The floor to the distinguished representative of Pakistan, followed by the Netherlands and France.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the OIC Group. OIC member states remain deeply concerned at the situation of human rights of Rohingya Muslims and other minorities in Myanmar. Recurring and escalating cycles of violence have repeatedly targeted the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar in particular. Their plight demands this Council's continued attention. As victims of systemic discrimination and repression, Rohingya Muslims face violations and abuses of human rights. They are denied citizenship and deprived of basic services. In addition to daily discrimination, they face arbitrary detention, forced recruitment, and displacement from their homes. Meanwhile, the repatriation of the Rohingya Muslims from Bangladesh and other countries to Myanmar remains a persistent challenge due to lack of commitment from Myanmar authorities and absence of conducive environment within Myanmar. In view of the grave human rights situation of Rohingya Muslims and other minorities, the OIC member states intend to present a resolution once again at the forthcoming session of the Human Rights Council. Mr. President, at the 59th HRC session, the resolution titled Situation of Human Rights of Rohingya Muslims and Other Minorities in Myanmar was adopted without a vote. The group looks forward to the support of the Council members as well as the broader UN membership in adopting this draft resolution with consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Netherlands, followed by France and the ROK.
President, allow me to introduce two initiatives, a side event and the resolution on the freedom of opinion and expression. The Kingdom of the Netherlands is hosting a side event on the safety of journalists in conflict, which will take place on the 19th of June from 1300 to 1400 hours in room 7. The event will feature frontline journalists from Sudan, Ukraine, and Gaza, and discuss the implementation of the Special Rapporteurs Irene Khan's new guidelines on the protection of journalists in armed conflict. We look forward to your participation. Now I turn to the resolution. The Netherlands, together with a cross-regional core group consisting of Brazil, Canada, Fiji, Namibia, and Sweden, is honored to present the biannual resolution on freedom of opinion and expression at the 62nd session of the Human Rights Council. This resolution will build on the important work of the Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression, whose analysis continues to inform and guide these efforts. The right to freedom of opinion and expression is a foundational and enabling human right, essential for the protection of all other rights and for ensuring democratic governance, security, economic prosperity, and sustainable development. It empowers individuals to seek, receive, and impart information, enabling them to participate meaningfully in public life, to challenge injustice, and to shape decisions that affect them. This right is especially critical for marginalized groups, including women and girls, whose voices are too often constrained or excluded. Building on previous iterations, this year's resolution draws from relevant thematic resolutions of both the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly, as well as the expertise of the UN and civil society, to address emerging challenges to freedom of opinion and expression in an increasingly complex global context. We intend to hold open informal consultations on this resolution in line with Council standards and look forward to engaging constructively with colleagues in the weeks ahead to achieve a consensus-based resolution. Now, Mr. President, if you allow, the distinguished representative of Canada will outline this year's focus and new elements.
President, Canada is pleased to join the Kingdom of the Netherlands in presenting this resolution on behalf of the core group. This year's resolution places particular emphasis on the impact of emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, on the exercise of freedom of opinion and expression. While these technologies offer significant opportunities, their misuse poses serious risks. It is essential that transparency, accountability, and adequate safeguards, in line with international human rights law, are in place across the life cycle of emerging technologies. The resolution also reinforces the link between freedom of expression, information integrity, and the safety of journalists and other media workers. In an era of digital harassment, disinformation, and pressure on independent media, including in conflict and crisis settings, ensuring a safe and enabling environment for journalists is more important than ever. Additionally, the resolution highlights the growing misuse of legal measures, including strategic lawsuits, restrictive defamation provisions, and overly broad cybercrime or foreign agent laws, which silence dissent and restrict civic space. The resolution also draws on recent reporting by UN experts to highlight the rising cross-border intimidation and surveillance, including online harassment and technology-facilitated threats that undermine the safety and human rights of individuals. It encourages preventive and protective measures to support those effective. More broadly, the resolution reaffirms the primary responsibility of states to respect, protect, and fulfill this right, while recognizing the critical contributions of civil society, academia, the media, and private sector in safeguarding this essential right. I thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of France, followed by the Republic of Korea and Armenia.
Merci, Monsieur. Thank you, President. During the 62nd Human Rights Council that marks the 20th anniversary of the Council, France will engage in a cross-regional core group including Albania, Chile, Morocco, Peru, Philippines, and others. And this is a demonstration of our commitment to the universality, indivisibility, and interdependence of human rights. This initiative will renew the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and will honour the work done by a number of mandate holders that has advanced thinking. We will look at strategies to eradicate poverty. We will strive to build a consensus on these challenges critical for over 7 million people, integrating civil society and people living in poverty in order to contribute to implementing the SDGs. This resolution will be the subject of open consultation, and we hope that once again it will be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Republic of Korea, followed by Armenia and the Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Republic of Korea recognizes the important role of local governments in translating human rights commitments into practice. While we regret that the implementation of certain activities mandated under Human Rights Council Resolution 57/12 has been affected by the United Nations' ongoing financial and liquidity challenges, we remain committed to advancing discussion on local government and human rights and sustaining international attention to this important issue. In this regard, I am pleased to announce that the Permanent Mission of Republic of Korea, together with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, plans to organize a side event on local government and human rights on 23rd June from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. in room Concordia 1. We welcome the publication by OHCHR and UCLG of the guidance framework for creating a human rights city in July 2025. Building on this important contribution, the side event will provide an opportunity to exchange views on the implementation of the framework, as well as on challenges and good practices in promoting and protecting human rights at the local level. A concept note and further details will be shared with delegations in due course.
Armenia, followed by Philippines and Japan.
President, Armenia would like to inform delegations of initiatives that it will support and organize over the 62nd Human Rights Council. First, in the field of the rights of the child, Armenia will co-sponsor on the 24th of June of their rights, and it will be an opportunity to explore specific ways of better protecting these children, their families and their welfare. Secondly, in light of our commitment to the promotion and protection of the rights of women and girls in the context of digital technologies, Armenia, in partnership with members of the Central Cross-Regional Group and Working Group on Discrimination Against Women and Girls, a side event will be organized devoted to the role of international cooperation in reducing the digital divide across gender. These discussions, which will happen on the 23rd of June, will draw on the next report from the working group that will be presented during the session. It'll be an opportunity to review opportunities and challenges surrounding the digital divide and artificial intelligence, and will be a way to guarantee full, equal, and effective participation of women and girls within the digital world. We will be pleased to underway within the Central Cross-Regional Group with a view to promote during the next session of the Council a thematic initiative devoted to this very issue. Finally, for the second year running, Armenia will organize a bring together members of the diplomatic community for a friendly chess tournament that will celebrate our values of mutual respect, dialogue and cooperation. We hope that member states, observers, as well as civil society representatives will join us for this event. Additional information on all of these events will be communicated in the coming days. We hope that
The Philippines, Bangladesh, and Vietnam will present the annual resolution on human rights and climate change, focusing on adaptation and the realization of human rights of present and future generations. Over the past 18 years, this resolution has contributed to advance in some ecosystems. Without urgent climate action, the human cost of the climate crisis will continue to increase, even as the window for security informed by human rights, social justice, intergenerational equity, and gender, and supported by adequate means of implementation. Among the proposed new elements are the recognition of the ICJ and ITLO's advisory opinions and normative gaps in the protection of people in the event of disasters, including those on the move within and across borders. The draft also a human rights perspective to the process through the analytical study proposed in this resolution. The core group looks forward to an inclusive and constructive consultation with states and
Morocco and Japan will present a resolution on the elimination of discrimination against persons affected by leprosy or Hansen's disease and their family members during this session. Since the Human Rights Council first adopted this resolution in 2008, the International Committee has advanced efforts to eliminate discrimination against persons affected by Hansen's disease and their family members. And since 2017, Special Rapporteur have furthered this cause through their country visits, reporting, and stakeholder engagement. Since embarking on this journey in 2008, yet discrimination against persons affected by Hansen's disease persists in many parts of the world. Hansen's disease-related discrimination has unique historical and institutional characteristics. It is precisely this highly institutionalized nature of the historical discrimination that sets Hansen's disease apart from other debilitating diseases whose manner, given the acute financial crisis we face. We believe that the best way to achieve the greater efficiency is to focus our attention on promoting domestic implementation and institutionalization of the principles and guidelines. Hence, reduce reporting cycles and interactive dialogue. This is in fact in line with a call from Djibouti and Australia for rationalization. Mr. President, the core group looks forward to constructive engagement with all delegations during the informal consultations, and we hope that this resolution will once again be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Morocco, followed by Cuba and Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. My delegation is honored to announce that we will be organizing a side event on protecting human rights through the prevention of corruption on Thursday, 25 June at 2 p.m. The objective of this event is to present the severe consequences and damages resulting from corruption as gaps for social development and human livelihood, and to identify opportunities and synergies between processes in Geneva and Vienna. In French. La délégation du Maroc qui endosse la présidence du groupe des
We are looking at the issue of gender equality within the
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba, followed by Estonia and Colombia.
Thank you very much, President. And the 62nd Human Rights Council is taking place in a context of growing threats and a military aggression on Cuba by the US. This of US young people, Americans, who would lose lives in an absurd way. They're using the argument of representing our small island as a supposed threat to national security of this nuclear superpower. This idea defies logic and common sense. Cuba is not, and nor can it be, a threat for the USA. You just have to look at a map. They're lying to justify yet another irrational war. Our government of the United States that is provoking serious harm for Cuban families with a strengthened economic embargo and additional measures that are even more aggressive. And we're also facing a brutal siege on our energy resources. The blockade that has been imposed on Cuba for over 5 months is like a naval blockade, and this is an act of war. The consequences are simply devastating. This is a plan to bring about a humanitarian crisis. Our people are suffering on a daily basis, long blackouts, difficulties in the supply of water, transport, normal services, the provision of gas and food and services. We are seriously seeing the healthcare system and education system are seriously affected, as well as other sectors. This crisis is not because of the supposed incompetence of the Cuban government or our economic model. The US is thousands of people to inhumane conditions, creating scarcity, shortcomings, because of political means, is not acceptable under any circumstances. Situation, nothing can justify suffocating an entire population. The Council must act. Of the because of the goals of another country, and that we be so that you can prevent a humanitarian catastrophe from befalling the Cuban people, whether this be through weapons or through the energy blockade that is also killing people. We know full well that Cuba is not alone. On behalf and we're seeing serious, that the Cuban people are facing serious danger. Cuba does not want conflict. We want to see dialogue and peace. But if the military aggression occurs, if war is imposed upon us, which is not something we want, you can rest assured that Cuba will fight to the very end to defend its sovereignty and independence. Text on human rights and international solidarity, which will focus on the renewal of this important mandate. The second draft will focus on convening a social forum for 2027. To conclude, I would say that Cuba on the 29th of July will organize a side event on the Declaration to the Right to Peace, which is celebrating its 10th birthday this year, following its
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Estonia, followed by Colombia and Brazil.
President, allow me to present two side events taking place in the margins of the Human Rights Council. The Geneva Human Rights Hub, a side event entitled The Impact of Human Rights Council Output on Regional and National Regulations Strengthening Users' Rights in the Online Sphere, Model on Platform Regulation, taking place on June 18th at 2 p.m. in room 7. The event will examine different models of platform regulation and discuss how the Human Rights Council's normative and interpretive work is organizing the side event, The Unseen Harm, Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference as a Human Rights Violation, and it will take place on June 25th at 2 p.m. in room 5. The objective of this side event is to introduce the concept of foreign information manipulation and interference, to examine its implications for information integrity and its harm to the enjoyment of human rights, and to identify entry points for intergovernmental cooperation. To conclude, let me mention that after 20 years, the Council remains as relevant as ever, and it is our common responsibility to strengthen and support this institution, including by making efforts to increase efficiency and rationalization. And in this regard, we welcome widened use
Thank you, President. During the 62nd Human Rights Council session, Colombia will present, along with Uruguay, Sweden, Georgia, Fiji, Sierra Leone, and Japan, a new version of the resolution on the promotion, protection, and respect for the full enjoyment of the human rights of initiative. We've also consulted with other central cross-regional groups to come on board. The renewal of this, or the updating of this resolution, happens at a time of unprecedented crises with refugees or displaced have been victims of sexual violence. and 60% of maternal deaths occur in countries affected by conflict. At about 5%. At the end of 2025, we saw the abrupt withdrawal of donors to specific programs. International organizations that have been led by women as first responders in many crises are now on the brink of collapse. 90% have suffered from serious financial cuts, and around half according to 4 interconnected pillars: the nexus between climate change and humanitarian situations and their differentiated impact on women and girls, violations of human rights in humanitarian contexts with specific focus on vulnerable groups, access to justice and full participation of women and girls, and development and international cooperation and funding, with an emphasis to overcome the systemic lack of funding and to meet humanitarian needs. Colombia would call on all states and interested parties to participate actively in the consultations that will take place during the session, with a view to, we've lost the sound, no, with a view to achieving a
Switzerland, and the Council of Europe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brazil, together with partner countries, will promote 2 side events during the next session of the Council. The first side event will discuss the role of freedom of expression in the empowerment of women. The event aims to analyze and reaffirm the intrinsic relationship between gender equality and freedom of expression. As the right to speak without fear constitutes an indispensable condition for women's empowerment, in particular in the context of women's participation and leadership in decision-making. Including political, diplomatic, economic, and social spheres. The challenges to the full enjoyment of women's freedom of expression, brought by the emergence of various technological advancements, including artificial intelligence, requires, in this context, further in-depth consideration. The event will take place on June 22nd, 12 o'clock at room 11. The second side event will discuss the promotion and protection of the rights of indigenous LGBTQIA+ persons. The event aims to bring light to the importance of addressing the multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination faced by indigenous LGBTQIA+ persons, as well as to promote inclusive approaches grounded in human rights. Indigenous LGBTQIA+ persons are often exposed to compounded vulnerabilities resulting from the intersection of discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and socioeconomic marginalization. Such challenges may affect the full enjoyment of their human rights and fundamental freedoms, including access to education, healthcare, employment, justice, and political participation. In this context, the side event will also provide an opportunity to reflect on good practice aimed at combating violence, stigma, exclusion, and other forms of intolerance, while strengthening the protection of indigenous cultures, identities, and traditional knowledge systems. The event will take place on a date to be confirmed as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Switzerland, followed by Council of Europe and Kenya.
Thank you, President. Switzerland, as a penholder for the resolution on child marriage, early marriage and forced marriage, will present a new version with a trans-regional group of states: Canada, Honduras, Italy, Montenegro, the Netherlands, Poland, Sierra Leone, Thailand, and Uruguay. The resolution will focus on the implementation of guidelines established by the Office of the High Commissioner pursuant to Resolution 53/23 that was adopted in 2023. These guidelines are an important contribution to the prevention and eradication of this harmful practice, and it is also in connection with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why we believe it is essential to give greater visibility to these guidelines. We count on the constructive marriage. In addition to the events already announced by and supported by Switzerland, I have the pleasure of announcing the holding of an event, a side event, on the Rabat Action Plan and its implementation online. This topic was the subject of a workshop organized last April by Switzerland in cooperation with the Office of the High Commissioner and the NGO Article 19. The side event will be an opportunity to come back to the results of this workshop. It's on 22nd of June from 1 to 2 in Concordia 1.
Federal Council, the State Council of the Republic and Canton of Geneva, and the Executive Council of the City of Geneva to a reception. It will take place on 15 June from 1815 to 1945 at the Restaurant des Délégués on the 8th floor of the A building. It is being organized to mark this 62nd session, which coincides with the 20th anniversary of the Human Rights Council. The Swiss authorities look forward to your attendance, and the invitations are forthcoming. On 19th of June, I that the National Dress Day will take place on 19 June at the Salle des Pas Perdus in the A building. It will be followed by a multicultural party. Complete information will be shared with permanent missions by this Wednesday, 3 June, along with full list of focal points for the event. Delegations wishing to pledge food, drinks for the multicultural party can already get in touch with Alfonsina from the Dominican Republic and Yvonne from Kenya. Thank you for your attention.
And stands ready to contribute constructively throughout the upcoming 60-second session. We are pleased to announce that the Council of Europe, jointly with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and other regional organizations, plans to organize a side event entitled Universality of Human Rights Across Regions how both the UN human rights system and regional complementary action, fostering good practices and cross-regional dialogue. Despite current trends, the side event aims to illustrate how universal norms can be strengthened through diverse institutional arrangements and cultural context. We trust it will civil society and partners to join us for this important discussions. Invitations will be distributed shortly. I thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kenya, followed by the EU and Hungary.
Thank you, Mr. President. The African Group wishes to inform the Council that it will be presenting under Agenda Item 10 a draft resolution entitled Technical Assistance and Capacity Building for South Sudan. This renewal of this mandate reflects our continued human rights in a sustainable and inclusive manner. In the case of South Sudan, continued support from international community remains essential as the country advances its transition processes and implements key provisions of its peace agreements. We look
The EU, followed by Hungary and Monaco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to first of all confirm the EU's unwavering commitment to the UN human rights system, including the Human Rights Council and its mechanisms. We look forward to celebrating the Council's 20th anniversary with all partners in the course of the upcoming session. Thank you and the Bureau members for the steps taken to steer the Council's work in times of continuing funding cuts and rationalization needs. And let me underline that the EU and its member states pay assessed contributions in full and on time. We also thank you for reiterating that there is a zero tolerance against harassment in the Human Rights Council, including the informal meetings taking place on the sidelines We welcome certain progress made since last year, including a release of some arbitrarily detained persons and a training by OHCHR requested by Eritrea, and encourage this to be continued. We also appreciate the dialogue we have had with the Eritrea mission. However, in light of the continuously concerning human rights situation, continued monitoring and reporting by the Special Rapporteur and attention by this Council remains necessary. We look forward and with the readiness to reconsider initiatives. As EU, we have already taken quite a few such steps, including the significant reduction of mandated IDs and the merging of resolutions, as well as biannualizing or triannualizing
Hungary, followed by Monaco and Norway.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Hungary and the cross-regional core group comprising of Australia, Botswana, Mexico, Thailand, and the Maldives, we intend to submit a resolution under item 3 on the independence and impartiality of the judiciary, jurors and assessors, and the independence of lawyers, as well as the mandate renewal of the Special Rapporteur on the independence of judges and lawyers. The intention of the core group is to merge the thematic and mandate renewal resolutions in light of the ongoing rationalization efforts in the Human Rights Council. Therefore, the two resolutions will be synchronized and will be presented on a triennial basis in the future. The core group's aim is to preserve the resolution's consensual nature, and it will conduct the consultation process with states, civil society organizations, and other relevant stakeholders in the spirit of dialogue and transparency. The time and venue of the informal consultations will be communicated in due course. We hope to count on delegations' constructive engagement. throughout the negotiations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Monaco, followed by Norway and New Zealand.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, President. From Ukraine to the Middle East, today's conflicts are dramatically changing civilians' daily lives, shattering their safe havens and resilience. The massive destruction Ukraine and Monaco will, on the sidelines of the 62nd session of the Human Rights Council, organise a side event dedicated to the place of sport in time of war. Representatives from organisations active in the field of sport will discuss be an event that will be available on WebEx. The invitations will be sent out shortly. I thank you.
In enhancing UPR participation and in the implementation of UPR recommendations, as well as the positive impact of UPR advisors in OHCHR regional offices.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of New Zealand, followed by UK and Ukraine.
Thank you. With disabilities, and over this time it has been encouraging to see the progress countries have made towards creating inclusive societies where persons with disabilities benefit from the full enjoyment of their rights and can to health and education, to name a few. The value we derive from the Special Rapporteur role remains critical in supporting us all to overcome these challenges. As an independent expert, the Special Rapporteur produces guidance, is consulted in the development of UN reports, and also provides practical recommendations and technical assistance, all with the aim of helping countries integrate disability rights and review for an efficient and effective UN. As well as the Human Rights Council efficiency and rationalisation process led this year by Australia and Djibouti. We encourage others to do the same, and we look forward to working with all
are happy to hand over to the Ukrainian delegation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ukraine, followed
Think of Japan, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and the United Kingdom will present an updated resolution on the role of states in countering the negative impact of disinformation. Enjoyment of human rights. As the Russian Federation further escalates its war of aggression against Ukraine, we remain committed to ensuring sustained international attention to the grave and systematic human rights violations and abuses resulting from Russia's actions. In this regard, we welcome the upcoming interactive dialogue on CRSV survivors, the path towards the implementation of Ukraine's law on urgent interim reparations as a new global standard. Organized by the government of Ukraine in partnership with the UN Women and UN team of experts on the rule of law and sexual violence on survivor-centered approach to implementing reparations frameworks that integrate financial compensation, psychological support, and socio-economic recovery measures. We would be particularly pleased to welcome to this event where Ms. Katerina Levchenko, to the promotion and protection of all human rights and express our readiness to continue an open and constructive dialogue across a broad agenda of the 62nd session of the Human Rights
Council, Portugal will be once again tabling the draft resolution on the renewal of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the right to education. Not only as a right in itself, but as a foundation for resilience, inclusion, and the realization of the broader 2030 agenda. In this context, this mandate
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Liechtenstein, followed by Peru and the Sovereign Order of Malta.
barriers to justice and healthcare in a survivor-centered manner in the context of conflict-related sexual violence against men and boys in Ukraine. While there is clear evidence that women and girls are routinely the targets of sexual violence and armed conflict, there's also increasing recognition that men and boys are exposed have documented the widespread targeting of women and girls, but also men and boys who have suffered from conflict-related sexual violence, mainly, although not exclusively, in situation of deprivation of liberty. At the side event, we will be joined by several distinguished experts to strengthen awareness and support a holistic understanding of
Distinguished representative of Peru, followed by Sovereign Order of Malta.
Señor Presidente.
President, I am pleased to announce that Peru and Ecuador will present an updated version of the biennial resolution entitled Human Rights and the Acquisition, Possession and Use in the context of the United Nations work have highlighted the growing interconnection between illicit trafficking and the possession, use and circulation of light firearms, and it is also linked to transnational crime and other forms of crime, and it also hampers the enjoyment of human rights. Millions authority. They also limit access to education, public health, and public spaces, amongst other things. This resolution, in its updated version, will seek to looks at its role in the illicit trafficking of arms and munitions, and it will aim to strengthen international, regional and sub-regional cooperation in previous years. We will be able to move towards a consensus-based adoption of this resolution. I thank you.
Sovereign Order of Malta wishes to announce that it will sponsor a side event on leprosy, Hansen's disease, during the forthcoming session. The side event will take place on Wednesday, June the 17th, between noon and 1 p.m., room 3. The leprosy-related segregation and discrimination through a human rights-based approach grounded in truth, justice, reparations, duty to remember, and guarantee truth and justice, and persons affected by leprosy as well. Co-sponsors are welcomed from member states, and the support of each country and NGO is also very much welcome.
Consider the multi-year program of work and the HRC mapper tool when considering new initiatives, as well as, I may add, as suggested by the distinguished representative of New Zealand about the recent UNGA resolution, as well as the upcoming UNGA resolution on the Council review. An informal open-ended consultation should be held on each draft resolution or decision before action is taken by the Council. The consultation should be scheduled in a manner that considers the constraints faced by delegations, regarding the documents for this session. More than half of the reports prepared for this session are already available in all official UN languages and I would like to remind delegations that all oral statements should be electronically submitted to interpreters at least one hour before their delivery. This is important for the quality of video statements is a prerequisite for them to be interpreted. And therefore, I urge all delegations to verify that they are in accordance with the standards. Excellencies, distinguished participants, colleagues, we are coming to the end of this meeting. I would like to open the floor for any comments or information on the issue discussed. And for the information that you have shared. I look forward to seeing you in the Assembly Hall for the opening of the 62nd session on Monday, June 15 at 10 a.m.
you.